Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to France once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. But we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel before. The last beer that I had from these guys was very nice actually. It was from the lighter end of the spectrum. This time we're going to go to the darker side of things and see how we get on. But as I've said in previous reviews, I feel that trying something from the lighter end of the spectrum, something from the darker end of the spectrum, and also a lager if you can get it, this always gives you a good measure of what a brewery is all about. But yeah, curious to see what this one has in store for us. So fingers crossed it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to return to a little place called Liverdun in the northeast of France, close to Nancy, and we're having a look at another beer from Piggy Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Jakarta Trip. It's brewed in collaboration with Bièrothèque, who are one of the biggest beer shops in France from what I understand. It's an 11% Imperial Stout brewed with cacao and banana. So this, I think, could make for a very, very interesting review. But this is another beer that I bought from Beerdome down in the Netherlands, who have a great selection of different beers. They seem to have a fairly solid selection of French things as well, so I'll be keeping an eye on that going forward. And yeah, when I bought this beer, I actually thought it was an Indonesian coffee Imperial Stout, but no, it's a banana and chocolate Imperial Stout. So I've not had that before. I think it could make for an interesting review. But yeah, we'll just need to see how we get on. As I've told you in previous French reviews as well, I've been very, very impressed with the standard of French craft beer over the years, and it's nice to see that the French breweries are starting to push their beer outside of France a little bit. My first encounter with French beer was back in about 2014. When I visited La Cave Boulet in Paris, which is now sadly closed. And yeah, the standard of stuff that I bought from them was really, really impressive actually. So I've always kept an eye out for anything French that has come forward since then. And we are starting to get a few more breweries here in Scandinavia now, which is great to see. So long may it continue, and I do hope that more French breweries follow suit and start exporting some of their beers. But like I say, nice to return to Piggy Brewing Company once again, and I'll introduce you a little bit to La Bièrothèque as well, and see how we get on. But yeah, let's crack on with this review then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website. I'll also put a link to La Bièrothèque as well. But there's the links to my other reviews that I've done from Piggy Brewing Company before, and we will hopefully add more to that in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the French beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely, hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Piggy Brewing Company first off. So Piggy Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Liverdun in Grand-Est-France, which is a kind of medieval and resort town apparently these days, but it's very close to Nancy in the northeast of the country. But the brewery was founded back in 2016 by Romain Bach and Bièrothèque, and Romain and Pierrot started home brewing together back in about 2009. Over the coming years, though, they would develop many, many recipes before they officially founded the company together in 2016. But they initially brewed their beers under contract at the IFBM, which is the French Institute for Brewing and Malting, and then later at the Hoppy Road Brewery in Masheville. But in 2018, Lorenzo Gamba, who was another home brewer, joined the company along with his brother Thibaut, and he is a Michelin chef. So they've got quite an impressive array of people behind the company these days. But their beers proved to be very, very popular, and they were able to invest in their own brewery, and they settled on Liverdun in 2019. But the brewery itself is equipped with a 20 hectolitre brew kit, and they've basically gradually expanded the fermentation capacity. So these days they can produce around 5,000 hectolitres of beer per year, or 500,000 litres, which is quite impressive actually. That's one of the bigger French microbreweries that I've heard of. But the brewery can be found in one of the old warehouses in Madeleines de Liverdun, and it has a floor space of 1,300 square metres. But they chose an English name for the brewery rather than a French name because they said they've been greatly influenced by the English breweries and beer styles. And the idea behind the name Piggy is that they feel that people can be fat in spirit and enjoy good beer and good food. And the pig is also supposed to embody a sort of jovial spirit, if you like. And as of July 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 150 different kinds of beer, and there's various different styles in there. They do quite a few different sour beers. They have New England IPAs. They've got Imperial Stouts like this, and you'll find a host of other things if you check through the Rate Beer and Untappd pages as well. So do make sure you check them out. But like I say, these guys are one of a couple of French breweries who are starting to push their exports at the moment. So it's definitely worth having a look at some of their beers and seeing how you get on. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Piggy Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's tell you a little bit about La Bièrothèque then and see how we go. So La Bièrothèque are a beer shop, bar and restaurant based in Toulouse and owned by Thomas Villon, who also owns the Delirium Bar. And apparently this place is definitely worth checking out. One of the most extensive collections of craft beer on tap in the whole of France. But La Bièrothèque is apparently the biggest craft beer shop in the whole of the country, and they've got somewhere in the region of 1,300 different beers at any one time, and they recently opened up a second branch in La Beige as well, close to Toulouse. So I do think I need to get down there and take a little look at it. I might see if I can order some stuff online from them actually, because they did have a fairly decent web shop, and if they send up here to Sweden, then I don't see why we can't do a French order at some point. But yeah, that would be really cool to try and sort out at some point in the fairly near future. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about La Bièrothèque. It was quite difficult to find any information on these guys, but I'll put the link to their Facebook page and things for you in the description below, and you can follow them and things if you wish, and their website of course as well. But that's all I can tell you about them. Check out those links in the description below as I said, but let's get on and actually have a little taste of this beer. So as you can see, this one has some really nice artwork on it. I think it is pretty impressive. You can see on the side here, there is the Piggy Brewing Company symbol, and you can also see La Bièrothèque, and they've got quite clearly a collab. So you can see the pig out for a wee expedition, and also La Bièrothèque as well, the beer guru. But yeah, I think the artwork on this, it's very sort of like Mayan, something like that, you know, kind of South American. But yeah, when it says, I was saying South American, but you know, Jakarta obviously in Asia. But like I say, when I bought this beer, I thought it was going to be like an Indonesian coffee Imperial Stout, but no, bananas, can't speak in this review, bananas and cocoa added into it. But 11% ABV Imperial Stout, this one, little 330ml can, and as I mentioned earlier, I bought this beer from Bièrothèque in the Netherlands, who seem to have a fairly solid selection of different French beers, so I'll probably order a few more from there at some point in the future. But yeah, I think I paid maybe about €6 or €7 for this. Let's say 7, because that's just something that sits in my memory. So I paid €7 for this beer, somewhere in the region of about £6. And I guess that translates roughly to about $8 American for those of you watching over there as well. But yeah, let's get this guy out then, and we'll get on with the tasting. An 11% Imperial Oatmeal Stout, apparently, with cocoa and banana added into it. I've never had banana in an Imperial Stout. It's not a fruit that I'm overly fond of, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I bought the beer, so might as well try it. There we go. So let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we get on. Show up the last little bit and see if we can get a head on this. So yeah, as you can see, before the head disappears, it well, it has. Look at how quickly that head disappeared. Craziness. But yeah, when the beer poured, obviously, and we did give it a bit more of an aggressive pour, it poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of dark tan head there, but it's faded away to be pretty much nothing now. So yeah, otherwise the beer looks pretty much as you would expect from an Imperial Stout. A lovely dark ebony rosewood colour to this one. Remember, the colour of your beer is determined by 1, the type of malts that you use. This determines the magnitude of the colour. The length of your wort boil is also going to play a role as well. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. An imperial stout like this will probably undergo a wort boil of several hours, like 4 to 6 hours, something like that. Any adjuncts and barrel aging, of course, will play a role in determining the colour of your beer, but those two factors are more prominent when it comes to talking about sour beers and things, not so much when it comes to imperial stouts, of course. But yeah, nothing really surprising about this beer in terms of the aroma. One or two bigger bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But yeah, in terms of an imperial stout, to be quite honest with you, it looks exactly as you would expect. Lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. The head is faded away, of course, because it's an 11%er. And I'm guessing, does it have wheat in it, this one? Don't think so. Doesn't look like it. So wheat is always the thing in these imperial stouts that helps you maintain a little bit of head. So I'm not surprised that the head is faded away in this one. The higher up you go on the alcohol scale, it tends to be that the head doesn't hang around too much. But yeah, looks the part then. So let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. That is really interesting. The first thing that this reminds me of, I forget the name of these sweets, but back home in the motherland of Scotland, we used to have these little candied banana type sweets, and they were it was like a sort of foamy type candy. The aroma of this beer really reminds me of those. You could go to the cash and carry places, and I used to go there with my uncle because my uncle owns a shop. You could go there and you could buy these sort of banana type things, and this beer really reminds me of those sort of candy banana sweets. I wish I'd remembered I wish I'd thought to look those up before I came on to film this video, but it really reminds me of those. They're those sort of yellow, long, foamy banana flavoured sweets. It really reminds me of those. But yeah, banana comes out of this one straight away. So this is definitely going to be a more kind of candied, sweet pastry type stout, this one. Exactly what style it's going to be, I'm not 100% sure, but they did say on the little blurb thing on Untappd that this was supposed to be an imperial oatmeal stout with a few adjuncts added into it. So I'm thinking this one will be very smooth. But yeah, the banana, straight away with this beer, you get the banana coming right out of it. So yeah, but let's try and break down the aroma of this beer for you a little bit more and give you a wee bit more detail. So the backbone of this beer, definitely you get a nice little bit of a toasty, bread crusty element there. You do get a wee bit of a kind of brown bready quality to it as well. But like I say, the banana is so infused into this one, that really dominates everything else. So yeah, there's a lovely kind of chocolatey side to this beer as well. So you can feel, or you can smell that there is a you can feel that there's a little bit of a kind of spectrum of chocolate in this one. You get a nice sort of 60-70% cocoa chocolate in this beer. So you can smell that towards the kind of back of the nose, if you like, but further forward you get a more sort of milky chocolate out of this one, and that's really interesting as well. So you get this really interesting mix of more milky 30%, 40% cocoa chocolate, but you also get a more kind of 60-70% darker, more bitter chocolate out of this beer as well, and then the candied banana just seems to be infused into that. It's almost like a little bit banana bready, this one, to be honest with you. You get that brown banana bread sort of vibe out of this. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer, I think, is very nice. So yeah, exactly what we should make of this one, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, toasty bread crusty base, a nice kind of smooth brown bready element to it, lovely sweet kind of chocolatey elements in there, but a mix of bitterness and kind of from the chocolate and a sweeter side of things. But you've also got a wee touch of a brown sugary element in there as well. You know, some kind of brown sugar, sort of a molasses caramel sort of thing. You can certainly smell that, but then the banana is infused into the whole thing. There's perhaps a little bit of a kind of woody and nutty element to this beer as well, which I really like. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one is I think is very, very nice. So yeah, the aroma to this beer works out very, very well. It is more of a kind of candied, I don't know if you could describe this as a pastry stout, but this is a very, very sweet stout in a lot of ways. But I think that covers the kind of malty, adjuncty side of things with this one. There is a wee bit of a more cakey element comes out of this beer the further you go on with it too. But the hoppy side of things, you can get a little touch of earthiness out of the beer. There's a wee touch of floral character as well, and also some lighter grassy notes. But the green component in this beer really takes a back seat to the malts and the adjuncts that are in it, and I'm not surprised about that, to be quite honest with you. On the fruity side of things, there's a little bit of a black curranty element to it, some blackberries. So it's got a bit of that sharper blackberry with a blackcurrant backbone, definitely some figgy notes, and there's almost just a wee bit of a kind of chocolate brownie in there, and the chocolate brownie and the other fruits gives you the impression of, you know, a wee bit of a more kind of plummy quality as well. So it certainly strikes me as a kind of pastry, candied type stout rather than anything else. But I think this will make for an interesting tasting section. Let's just say that this is very unique compared to any of the other stuff I've reviewed on the channel before. But yeah, let's have a taste of this beer and see how we get on then. So this one is the Jakarta Trip from Piggy Brewing Company in Liverdun near Nancy in the northeast of France, brewed in collaboration with Bièrothèque, the biggest beer shop in the country apparently, from Toulouse, and it's an imperial stout with cocoa and banana added into it, coming in at 11% ABV. Should be good. But let's taste it then. Slange, skull, cheers, and as they say in France, chanté. Okay, I'm going to say straight away, this beer is nice. You can tell straight away that it's been really crafted, but this is one that I'm going to have to sip on for a good few hours. This is going to take, 2 or 3 hours to fully kind of finish and enjoy this beer. It's really thick and it's really kind of potent in its flavours, if that makes sense. And yeah, because I'm not used to banana, it's a fruit that I never really took to be quite honest with you. I was always more into berries and stuff like this. Berries were always my thing rather than even oranges and apples and stuff like this. But banana was just one that I never ever took to that much. But I will say, in a sense, I do like banana flavour, but I just never took to eating banana itself. But this is a very nice beer, this one. It is nicely done, and when I think about the IPA that I had from Piggy Brewing Company before, I'm not surprised, but this is definitely going to take a couple of hours to just kind of sip through and enjoy, and I think that gives you a better appreciation of it if you do that with these big imperial stouts. But it gets a thumbs up from me. I do like this one, and it's got it really is, it's not quite a pastry stout, but it's certainly a sweeter stout, I think it's fair to say. And the level of sweetness in this is really nicely managed, actually. But yeah, as I say, I think probably if you are used to banana flavours, you will be able to drink this one a bit quicker than me. But as I say, banana flavour for me is a little bit more of an acquired taste. And this is one of the things, I'm guessing if some of the other beer tubers reviewed this, they'd tell you something different. Everyone has a different frame of reference, if you like, to these different beers. But for me, banana is not the most manageable of flavours, I guess you could say, but I think it really works quite well in this beer. The first impression of this one is it's a big cakey imperial stout, and you've got a banana backbone to it, and the banana really lingers in this. It's quite akin actually to a few of the beers we've had from Omnipollo back in the day as well. It's been a long time since I've had a big cakey imperial stout from them, actually. That's something that I need to look into as well. But yeah, if you like the big sort of cakey imperial stouts like Noah and Yellow Belly and stuff like that from Omnipollo, then this is one of the ones that you are going to enjoy as well. So yeah, as I say, I thought I was getting a coffee stout with this one, but no, But I'm not disappointed, I would say that. It's always nice to learn about new adjuncts and things when it comes to beers, and I'm sure I'll enjoy this over the next few hours actually, but this is most definitely a sipper rather than anything else. Let's break down the flavour for you though and describe it a wee bit more succinctly, if you like. So yeah, straight away with this beer then, it really has a very kind of savoury backbone to it. You can feel straight away across that middle third and back third of your palate, it's got a nice kind of, you get a bit of that kind of, you get a slightly toasty, well-fired bread crusty element to it, but it's not too pungent in a sense. On top of that, you get a brown bready element to the beer, which really kind of smoothens it out. And it's within that kind of brown bready character that you start to notice the roots of the banana. It's almost like a kind of banana bread sort of vibe that the beer has. But on top of that, you can feel that there is a slightly, you do actually feel a more kind of raw banana edge to it. So yeah, bread crust, brown bread, banana infused into it, and then on top of that, you start to get a little bit more of a kind of sweeter, you get a bit more of a kind of sweeter banana element out of this beer, which I can certainly associate with. So I like that about this one. The other thing that I'm noticing as well, the more that I drink of the beer, let's just focus on that middle third of your palate then, and we've described those layers so far. On top of the kind of bready layer and kind of mixing in with the banana, that's where you start to get the kind of cocoa element out of this beer, because the cocoa always gives you that sort of dry, chocolatey side of things. So yeah, the back of that, you know, the cocoa edge that this beer has, it is quite towards the back of that middle third of your palate. You can feel that it's a little bit drier and a little bit more bitter, so that's quite interesting. But as you move further forward across and towards the front of that middle third of your palate, you can feel that the chocolate element kind of sweetens out a little bit, and this is a typical thing that you see on the palate. The more bitter flavours come out at the back, and the more sweeter flavours, or just the sweeter flavours, my English is terrible these days, the sweeter flavours come out going further forward. So yeah, at the back of that middle third of your palate, you've got a kind of, you know, 70% cocoa chocolate, but as you move further forward, it mellows out to be more along the lines of like a 40% cocoa chocolate, which is interesting. But yeah, on the, as we could say, in the middle of that though, as I say, you've got that chocolate and banana kind of element mixing together, but on top of that you get a kind of oval sitting there, and that's where you get some of the brown sugars in this beer. There's definitely a bit of a treacly molasses kind of element to this one, like a heavily caramelized brown sugar, and that to me indicates that this beer has had a fairly long boil, in fact, so maybe 4 hours at least. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, you get a nice kind of sweet caramel, and that's the kind of epicentre of the booziness of this beer. When this beer is 11% ABV, that is something that you would expect. But like I say, the middle third of your palate in this beer is very, very layered, and I think that suits it quite nicely. So yeah. But yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business in that sense, absolutely. Yeah, on top of that then, I think the other thing I would say about the middle third of your palate is that underneath the kind of front half of that middle third of your tongue, you do get 1 or 2 little woody and nutty notes coming out of the beer. But other than that, I think we've covered everything from that perspective. But let's look at the back third of your palate then. Border region between middle third and back third of your palate. Again, you get a wee bit of a bready build up in there. You know, you get a bit more of an intense bread crust, but then the base of that back third of your palate, you do get a wee bit more of a kind of roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. On top of that, you get the more kind of brown bready elements. Then you get a wee bit of the banana, and on top of all of that, you get the more kind of airy, yeasty note coming out of the beer. So you can feel a little bit of that kind of brown bready thing in there. Even some of the banana mixes in with that as well. So yeah, the back, when you're at the back of the palate in this beer, you can feel the flavour is quite tall, but as you move further forward, it condenses down. Then as you go into the middle third of the tongue, it's more kind of squashed together actually. But yeah, I do like how this beer goes about its business in from that perspective too. So yeah, interesting combination of things going on in the malty and yeasty side of this beer, and this of course is the most complex part of it. But let's focus on the hoppy and fruity side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, there's definitely a wee bit of earthiness there, but I'm going to say straight away this is not the most hoppy of imperial stouts, and this tends to be the case with the kind of more modern sweet pastry type stouts that we're getting these days. They're not the most hoppy forward beers, although it does say houblon on this one, so there are hops in here. But yeah, a little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal, and as you push towards the kind of front corners of the palate, there's a little bit more of a kind of floral aromatic quality to the beer, but it's not too prominent. The hops really take a back seat in this one compared to some of the other elements, but around the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy in a sense. But the grassiness is it has a wee touch of zestiness, but yeah, it's not too it's not too pungent, if you like. It's not too forthright or prominent, I should say, in the flavour of the beer. But the green component takes a bit of a backseat to everything else. But let's focus on that front third of your palate then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you feel a little bit of a bready build-up in there, a wee bit of a bread crust. It does come across as being a little bit more kind of so like a chocolate brownie, something like that. So you do get this nice big kind of chocolate brownie element coming out of this one, which I can certainly appreciate as well. But yeah, the way that goes together is very, very nice. So the base of this beer actually is quite sweet on the front third of your palate. So you've got that chocolate brownie element there and a wee bit of the banana coming into it, and it's the banana and the chocolate brownie that's set at the back of that front third of your palate, and the base of the front third of your palate is kind of, that kind of pushes there as well. And then on top of that, you've got that oily bubble where those fruity juicy esters roll their way out of the beer. So on top of that, you get a little bit of a kind of raisiny element in there. There's a wee bit of a juicy plum, and as you push further forward beyond that, there is a little bit more of a kind of black curranty. You get a little bit of a figgy note and a wee bit of a black curranty and blackberry thing on the kind of front third of your palate. But then the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, it does dry out a little bit, and you get a wee bit more of a kind of toasty element to it as well. So it's really interesting just to see how all of that goes together in this beer actually. So yeah, interesting stuff. I have to say from this Imperial Stout. It's got a whole host of things going on in it, but like I say, this one is most definitely a sipper compared to some of the other ones that we've had before, and the banana element for me is quite strong, so that's something that I also have to account for in this beer. But yeah, this will be sipped over the next few hours definitely. But I think we can leave it at that for the tasting section of the video. Let's just round off with the mouthfeel then. So definitely a full-bodied beer. Yeah, carbonation is quite smooth in this one. It's actually got a little bit of slickness to it, this beer as well. But a smooth, slick Imperial Stout nonetheless. In terms of hoppy bitterness and just IBUs generally speaking, I think this is probably about 40, maybe not. I think about 30 or 40 IBUs this beer. It's quite hard to tell because of the sweetness it has from the banana. And remember, IBUs are always my weakest point of beer reviewing. That's so always take these with a bit of a pinch of salt. But the malt base and the yeasty adjuncty side of things in this beer is very sweet. This is really a kind of sweet, kind of pastry type Imperial Stout, this rather than anything else. Although it does have a few elements of oatmeal in there from the kind of bready side of things. But I do like how it goes about its business. That's for sure. I can appreciate this beer, although it might not be my kind of favourite type of Imperial Stout. Actually, I probably would have preferred this. I probably would have been a lot more excited about this if it had been an Imperial Coffee Stout. But like I say, I can appreciate this one and what it's going for. But if you're a big fan of banana and cocoa, I think you will enjoy this one. Like a little bit like a kind of banana split Imperial Stout. But like I say, malt base is very, very layered. Smoothness, sweetness, and a little bit of toastiness, I think, to it as well. The fruity side of the beer is a little bit oily, and it gives you that little bit of bitterness that you want from an Imperial Stout. But I think we can round off the review at that then. This one is the Jakarta Trip, an Imperial Stout with banana and cocoa at 11% ABV from Piggy Brewing Company in Liverdun in Grand-Est-France, quite close to Nancy in the northeast of the country, in collaboration with Bièrothèque, who are a very big beer shop from Toulouse in France as well. But yeah, an interesting beer, this one. An experience, I think, but potentially not my favourite type of Imperial Stout, so I'll be sipping this one over the next few hours to polish it off, and I'll maybe share it with a friend as well. We'll see how we go. But yeah, cool to return to Piggy Brewing Company once again. I've enjoyed reviewing this one for you. I can appreciate what it's all about, but the banana, I have to say, I'm not convinced about that. But that's me. I've never liked banana all that much, I have to say. But yeah, a solid beer, this one. If you're into your banana, then you'll enjoy it. And Piggy Brewing Company are one of the French breweries you should really keep an eye on over the next little while. But let's round off the review there then. So thank you for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Piggy Brewing Company as well. And we will return to these guys at some point soon. Let me know some other French beers and breweries in the comment section below as well. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and catch you guys soon. Santé.